Yeah. We rising above, let me tell you how it's done. Above average black man, shining like the sun. With Chris Sr., Chris Jr., Devin on the beat, we're telling stories from the heart. Feel the pulse in the heat, yo.
Let this song rock. Let this song rock. Yeah, man. That's what I'll do. This is too black and too much. Everybody has a thing.
Sharing love, sharing stories, watching truth unfold. Championing success in every single way. We uplift the community. Come join us today.
Ship us on a journey through laughter and tears, celebrating achievements, confronting our fears. We interview the dreamers, the doers, the straight hustlers, inspiring the youth. Yeah, we raising up these brothers, positive vibes only, breaking down the hate. We rebuild our narrative, it's never too late. Hear about the scholars, the athletes, the artists, in the world full of chaos, their light is the sharpest. Yeah, tune in, don't miss it, we got something to share. Above average black man's breath.
Welcome to another episode of Above Average Black Men. Yours truly, Christopher A. Pender Sr.
Devin Pender here. We're here to inspire, empower, and uplift the community. And as always, like, follow, subscribe, share, comment.
Yeah, we're missing somebody tonight because he's a little under the weather. Chris,
There's a bug going around, but
we're going to get into it, man. You young guns got to take care of yourself. Man.
I had a coworker who was sick too, so
yeah, you young guns got to take care of yourself. But yo, before we start, let's start with some good news. You'll be able to catch us on Above Average Black Men on live365.com. Special Sounds Entertainment. That's internet radio. Live365.com. Special Sounds Entertainment. You'll be able to catch us live on that show. And you'll be able to catch us all week long. So tomorrow this show will be posted. So if you be listening live tonight, and then this show will run until next Wednesday. And then the next show will be posted, run from Thursday to Wednesday. And check this out. We'll not only will we be on from 7:30 to 8:30 at night. I don't know how long it's gonna last, but we're on from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. So all you folk out there waking up, working out, on your way to work or whatever, you miss us, you got us.
if you want to wake up to
man. Yeah, you got us, man. You hit theme song.
Yeah,
theme song works for me.
Some encouragement, things like that. That's
Positive
definitely
radio.
awesome. So you can listen anytime you want. That's what it sounds like.
A dad and his two sons, man. You can't get better than that, man. I mean, what else do we have that, man? That's why it's called Above Average Black Men. But we're going to dive into it. Tonight's episode, or I should say, podcast is, the question is, are you impacting others or are you being impacted? And where the question came from, as you know, I deal with a lot of people. So I found myself asking this question a lot because people complain. In church, we preach about it, we talk about it. In the barbershops, it becomes a hot topic in the barbershop. Last time I was in the barbershop, we having this conversation around what's happening with our kids, our youth, and everything. And it's the thing now is to talk about it. Not to be about it, to talk about it and to complain about it. So, and I know some people who kind of allow society and the situation to change them.
Yeah.
So that's what came up with the question. Are you impacting us? Or are you being impacted?
And for a lot of people, I think it's a mixture of both. I feel like everyone gets impacted by daily relationships. You're learning certain things from whether it might be your upbringing, you have a mentor, it could be specifically where you're at. I think those things also impact you. And then you take that in and internalize it and also put it into other people, There may be kids watching. You may have a son or, you may be someone's role model without even really realizing it. And you could be making an impact with them as well. So I would say it's a little bit of both.
Well, I think it is. I think impact is unavoidable. However, how you being impacted is the question. For instance, when I do the work that I do, because I'm in schools, I'm in shelters, I see different types of people, going through different types of things, and you are impacted by the stories. You are impacted by, sometimes a sense of hopelessness. But there's a difference from being impacted by that way or being impacted to the point where it impacts you, where it's beating you down because that's all you think about now. you know, or it's turning you around. I don't want to help anybody because everybody hopeless, like, or what I do don't matter, you know. And I think, or you just get hard, and you know, like I look at homeless people, and some people look at homeless people and they refuse to help them because they say, oh, I had a high school student tell me this last week, all homeless people, they're homeless because they want to be homeless and they're on drugs, and you know, and then I'm like, no, that's not true, you know. So he's been impacted by that. So therefore, he's never going to give a thing to anybody because he think everybody's in a situation because they want to be like that. Now, it's easy to say when you're living with your mom and somebody's paying your bills and feeding you, but I know adults who just gave up. I'm not going to help people anymore. I'm going to look out for myself. Hence, I believe 85% of people in this world are selfish. I'm sticking to that. So I think there's different ways to be impacted. I think more people need to figure out how it can impact others. And I think part of that is people think impacting people means you always got to be preaching or teaching. You know, you always got to be doing something. Sometimes you lead by example.
It's funny when you said you gotta be careful what you're impacted by, because I feel like people don't really realize that. You know, you never, when you're in the moment, you don't realize, is this for the positive or just for the negative? You know, is it gonna help me or just gonna hurt me in the long run? That never really crossed your mind. It kind of also is positive when you're receiving it.
Well, we don't. It's funny because we are supposed to be the most intelligent beings on earth, and I don't know. I never looked at a brain of somebody else, but according to all, you know, statistics and scientists, we're supposed to be the most intelligent beings on earth, but we also seem to be the ones who think logically less. You know, it just seems like we don't spend enough time thinking things through logically. We don't spend enough time examining things through another lens. You know, we base stuff on, most people base stuff on their personal experience. You know, and when you do that, you form biases. You know, which kind of impacts you because now you see people a certain way, which is why racism and the stuff you see is going on right now. You know, when you do that, you kind of limit yourself to half the story. It's kind of like when I ask people if the glass half empty or half full. And what I found is people who say the glass is half empty are people who are kind of typically, they're not going to be entrepreneurs because they worry about what's not in the glass. They focus on what's not there. What people have a tendency to say is half full, they figure, okay, I got enough to start with. You know, I can fill the glass. So it's different mentalities, and I think that goes into what we're talking about because a lot of people are impacted by families. Because if you've been raised by a family who say get a good job and you know just make sure you get good benefits, you may, and it's exceptions to every rule, but you're more likely not to have an entrepreneurial spirit. You know, it's like families who value education. You know, kids are more likely to value education. But then you have some families who are impacted by, well, don't make no sense to send my kid to go to college because I heard all this crap on TV. So, you know, I just got to get them through high school. You know, so
bar low at that point.
Yeah, but the problem with that, when you're impacted, and a lot of times it happens, it just doesn't impact you. It becomes generational because you pass that nonsense on, you know, to your kids, or you don't get involved. And think about this: if everybody would just say, if it was 10 of us, and all of us decided we were going to just mentor one person or reach one person, that's funny. You know, and the numbers grows, and it's not just about that person, it's generational, because if I'm mentoring this person gets it right, you know, his kids is more likely to get it right. But I think we don't think like that. We think about here and now. You know, we think selfishly. You know, we don't, you know, we think if I do this, what am I getting out of it? You know, and so therefore we're not saying, okay, I'm doing this because I want to change someone else's life. You know, I look at people in church. There's some Christians who don't want to extend grace, but we're here because of grace. None of us are perfect. We've got grace and mercy, which allows us to do what we do, but yet they won't extend it to anyone else because they've been impacted by something. Somebody hurt them, or something came up in their life that they didn't think was fair or whatever. So, you know, impact, man, is a huge word, and I think a lot of us just don't, you know, we don't pay attention to. But we are. And I think if there was more self-examination, more people would think about, like I thought about. But how many people actually take time to stop and examine themselves? You know, some people live in the same dungeon, you know, self-imposed cage their entire lives.
Yeah, a lot of people don't stop and, you know, look within themselves, because I would think that's one of the hardest things for people to do, because you have to be honest. It's easier to be honest with someone else versus, you know, I gotta be honest by myself.
But there's impact, because if you grew up in a situation where people, like, you know, I've always told you guys to do that. You know, my dad raised me the same way. Look at yourself first.
Yeah.
You know, I don't care what the situation is. I don't care what somebody else did, how wrong it was. Look, what part did you play? you know. And it was funny because a lot of times, even though the person was wrong, he would say, okay, you know, he asked me, you know, how did you respond? You know, because your body language, your tone matters. You know, did you have to respond right then and there? Could you respond another time? Well, you didn't have to respond at all. So my dad obviously had an impact on it because the things he taught me, the stories he told me, you know, I've been able to carry and pass on. Now, however, I'm also wise enough to realize that there's a lot of people my age and come behind me who don't have that. So I think as humans, is our, you know, we need to be impacted people. When I was in college, I had a female professor of economics, and she introduced me to this quote. Well, not me, I say, but the whole class, and it stuck with me. Benjamin Banneker said, you know, he said, you have no right, you know, to pass through Earth without leaving behind, you know, distinct, legitimate reasons for having been here. And I think that's so true. I think, you know, people who was, you know, you go to the funeral, they were born, the sun rose and the sun set, and really nothing to say in between is a wasted life. You know, I think that person missed an opportunity to have a legacy, you know, and have something that's going to outlive you. Because the question I ask people, what's going to outlive you? When it's all said and done, yeah. And I'm not talking about your kids. If people say your kids and things, because you got some crazy kids, and you don't want that to be your legacy. You know, your kid grow up to be Max the Murderer. I don't think you want, you know. But what are you doing? What have you done that's going to outlive you? You know, and it's going to outlast you. And it was funny because I was talking to somebody yesterday about this. We were having a similar conversation because we were talking about how, you know, when you go places, you see people, and I go places and I see people from. I haven't ran hype in like what, man? How old are you?
I am 32.
So I haven't had right. I
was
20
11.
years. Yeah, like 20 years, and I still run into people. Says, man, you know, this changed my whole life.
That's influence.
Yeah, they say, look, you know, when everybody was, you know, was learning how to write a resume, I knew how to write a resume. When everybody was learning how to interview, I knew how to interview. You know, I didn't want to go to college. And I remember I'm walking around the store in Bosco. I was in Plymouth meeting, and this lady's following me, so I'm getting agitated because I think it's security. Yeah. And I'm about ready to turn around and say something. She said, oh, I didn't mean harm. She says, you know, you're Mr. Pender, right? You ran hyper. I said, yeah. She said, my daughter didn't want to go to college. Remember, you made her come to the program. You know, her name was Kathleen. You know, and I said, I remember, yeah, you made her come and everything because, you know, she wanted to get the $500. I thought by the time she got a hike, she wanted to go to college. I didn't know.
Yeah.
You know, but you don't do stuff because you expect to see instant results, which is another reason why people don't get involved. So, but to your point, we impact people all the time. Yeah. You know, because there's somebody watching us all the time.
And that's why I like what's on here when you say influence is unavoidable. And in a moment, you really don't realize that until I guess you hear some type of feedback or reflection.
Yeah. But I look at a sports team. You'll have a sports team that's a well-oiled machine. And then you'll have one person create drama and disrupts the whole team. Why? Because it starts to influence people one way or the other because people naturally choose a side.
Yeah. They
naturally choose a side. They don't do it on purpose, but they naturally choose a side. You very seldom meet somebody that says, I'm staying neutral. So now all of a sudden it impacts the team's performance. So that one person without hopefully not realizing impacted the whole team. And it happens every day. We see what's going on in politics right now. We see what's happening in politics right now. We're in a war that's not a war. People are dying, and so, over stuff that's not even really, what are they fighting for? Nobody didn't think yeah. So, but I said, yeah, but our president,
his old white man's war.
He's been really good at influencing people. Whether you can say what you want to say about him, but his influence has an impact, and we're seeing him.
So starting to go the other way now.
Yeah,
a lot of people not messing with him.
But we see, but he had such a strong impact and influence that
it got to this point.
Some of the damage that he's done is going to take a while to recover from. Like Camden, Camden closed the airspace. So now you're going to fly somewhere and you're in a flight. You used to fly with Camden. It's going to take you twice as long, and the ticket's going to go because it's going to cost more gas. More flights are going to get canceled because you got fewer pilots now because that extra miles they got to rest.
You can have a coworker. Yeah. He said he's supposed to be back at work today. They say he's stuck in Japan.
Yeah, see, that's the impact.
I said, wow.
See, that's the impact of somebody's influence. Yeah, so when they said 27,000 people were trying to get out of between Dubai and all those states over there. Yeah. 27,000 people. Again, somebody's influence has an impact. So we're always impacted. But my question is, and I took back, is what are we doing in our communities? What are we doing in our jobs? What are we doing in our families? You got nieces, nephews, uncles. There's people in your family who you can have an impact.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can have an impact just by not laughing at a stupid joke, a joke that's a racial joke or something like that. Sometimes you can have an impact by walking away from a bad situation. There's so many ways you can have an impact. Yet we get people, especially young people, they're impacted because I'll have a group of young people and we'll be going fine. And then one person to come in and disrupt the whole class. The whole group is disrupting them because one guy comes in and he wants to laugh and joke and act silly or whatever, and so he doesn't realize, well, he does, but I don't think he understands the gravity of it. He's having an impact, and it's not a good impact.
And you really don't see it in the moment until like someone like brings it up to you. Things like that may have happened to people like in the workspace where you may have a new manager. Yeah. You got one person, a lot of people are very open to it, but you got one person that decide off the rip they don't like the person. Now it spreads to the whole workforce, and now everyone's just against this one person.
Because we live in a place now, man. We're easily influenced.
Yes.
And I think influence is something that people don't understand. I was talking on another podcast when I'm on the Are. We were talking about it, and we were talking about kids and grandkids. And they were talking about how, your kid may not always do the right thing, whatever. But I was saying it also comes down to who influences your kid. They're not going to be exactly angels. But whoever has influence on a person has control of that person, whether you like it or not. If it's in a relationship and somebody has influence on you and they, you care that much about what they think that you change your mind, you do different things to please that person, they have control over you. The only people who don't understand influence is us. It's like when you go to buy a car.
Yeah.
You can go in there to buy the cheapest car on the lot. And he's working to get him to influence you. How's he influencing? He put you in the car with 12 speakers in it. And now you hear the stereos, the phonic sounds just blasting all over the place, man. It's hot. He got the air conditioning just blowing, man. You got the soft leather seats. He's showing you all the features, man. And he's trying to influence. He's trying to influence the way you're thinking, the way you spend your money. He's constantly trying to influence you. And unfortunately, he's influences a lot of people. They very seldom take you to the car you asked for because they want to show you the best.
That's all cars, by the way.
They do. But they want you to compare it to the other car. And when you go get in the other car, unless you were disciplined, your mind has been influenced that's the best vehicle for you. So even though you can't afford to buy it. It's like when they build houses. The model has everything in it, man. The model is, man, let me tell you, man, you go in there, the model is laid out with marble, we got gold, it's finished top line and everything. And then, how much did they tell you the house price is like $350,000? And then they say, well, wait a minute, that's for the base. What do you mean? Well, it costs more for that, it costs more for that, it costs more for that. But you've already been influenced because you're in there now. Who wants to leave a house when you got a marble and you got the hardwood floors and everything to a place with linoleum? Like, man, I've been there, So I think it happens all the time. And this is why I think we're not as impactful as we should be as human beings. Yeah. Because we allow influence to just toss and turn us, man. Somebody come along election time and say something that tickles our ears, man. The other 99 things they say don't have to make sense. And I think like one of the questions you can ask yourself is, are people better off, after they leave you than when they came?
Or when people leave your presence.
Yeah, your presence, or even in a relationship. If you're in a relationship, man, and maybe it didn't work out, well, how did that end? If you lead an organization, the people working for you, how are you treating that person? Is that person better off or they worse off? I mean, there's so many things that we have to take a look at, like and that's how you can tell, you can measure the impact you have on others. You can also measure the influence on you. Like my dad didn't realize it had a huge influence on me because I tell his stories all the time. Yeah. I just do naturally, and I'm surprised I remember them all. He just said, my grandma and my mom, they had a huge influence on me. I can think of other people when I look back on it, like, man, this person didn't realize it really influenced me. It had an impact on me because it left an imprint on me. So then you do, but I also, who have I influenced? And I sit back and I think about it, not in a braggadocious way. We've been out in a restaurant and the guy serving me said, you don't remember me, but you taught a workshop. So, that's pretty cool. And I laugh because, that's why you'd be nice to people. You never know what people turn up at. We were in the supermarket and this guy kept, ordered a piece of fish. And the guy put like 4 pieces of fish on there and he wrote this price. I'm like, yo, dude, you made a mistake. He said, you don't remember me, do you? I said, no. He said, I was in a youth ministry at New Covenant. We used to come over, we used to go to the campus. So you just never know. You know, I've been a bunch of places. Somebody, I was in a bank and a guy walked up to me and says, "Yo, you don't remember me?" You know, it's funny because he says I was in SEI, and so he said we were in SEI together. So people thought I was in jail. I'm like, no, I was doing a workshop.
Yeah.
But so so yeah, and
You gotta elaborate.
yeah, but you impact people and they go out and do better things. They become better people. That's what this is about. And I think this is why we see in society, because we no longer do that. If you took a poll, I don't know how many people could say they left people better off when they fell. You know, I don't know how many people could actually say that, whether they're, teaching, there's a lot of great teachers out there, but there's some teachers who don't do a great job. They just kind of going through the motions.
Just going about the day.
Yeah, when 3 o'clock come, I'm out, I'm done. We going through this stage now where everybody's talking about AI. And I love it. Well, I do, I love AI, and it does so many wonderful things. But the problem with it is, it also makes us lazy. And then the other problem with it is, I don't think people realize in order for AI to be truly effective, you got to put some thought into what you're putting into it.
Yeah, but people not putting thought into it.
Well, yeah, but
this paper done right now.
But then you do that because you don't realize what you're printing out in AI has an impact on somebody, because somebody's going to read it, so they're processing what you just wrote.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when you watch this crap on TV, which is why I don't watch the news, because they put a lot of stuff on there that has an impact on people. If we go back to racism, let's look at racism. There's a lot of people who are racist and don't know why. I've met so many people who I call them light-skinned people, who when you engage them in conversation, they don't know why. Their father told them something, or some great uncle.
Light skin or rice?
Rice. Some their father told them, their grandfather told them, or they read something, they saw some video, and they just assume that's who we are.
That's a lot of people. That's all they know. It's very unfortunate that that influenced their behavior, and then, like you said, now they're passing down to their kids. The kids don't even know why they don't like black people.
But that's the impact that poor influence can have on you. It's like certain artists. Certain artists are very. You listen to certain artists in music, like Michael Jackson's music is generational.
Yes.
His music comes on, people still kind of, and he had a huge influence because he made it cool to have high waters.
Not really.
Yeah, but it started to fad. It started to fad. People started wearing pants a little short. They had a bright white socks, but people started doing.
They got to my generation.
The moonwalking thing, because different people come out. Prince, when Prince was out before you again, people would dress. I would never dress like that. But his music is still influential. He had an impact on a generation of people who just the purple greatness. So music does it all the time. Super Bowl, I always use it. So I'm a marketing guy. You watch the Super Bowl, you can just get finished. You watch the Super Bowl. By the time all the commercials, you're hungry.
You want some Doritos?
Yeah, you're hungry, man. So influences, Michael Jordan, I think, had the biggest influence as far as marketing goes with the Nike campaign. Nobody knew who Nike was. People were wearing, and I was to wear them to the first leathers. Stan Smiths don't count because they were tennis sneakers, but Dr. J came to hit a leather Converse. And as a matter of fact, we wore them in college. That's what I wore. And because Dr. J, but then all of a sudden Michael Jordan comes out of nowhere.
My ankle was hurt this year.
Well, they were high tops.
Okay, I was about to say.
They were high tops, and they had leather. Not just I couldn't wear cameras either. But then Michael Jordan comes along, and just do it, the campaign, everything, and I'll be like Mike.
Yeah.
And some people was scrubs, but they walk around want to be like Mike, and they was to spend the money. So Allen Iverson was a cultural icon. Before he came into the NBA, man, football guy. He impacted a lot. Well, tattoos and cornrows. He made it popular. Because before then, you had to wear suits. You didn't see any guys with a lot of tattoos. You just didn't see all that. Then all of a sudden he comes along, man. He got the baggy pants on, man. He got the long white T-shirt on. He wearing his Timbs. They not tied up. He got the head, the bandana on or whatever. He had a huge impact on the generation. But his jersey was the number one selling jersey. You would go to China and see people with braids and stuff in their hair. There's NBA players today who will tell you that, they mimicked him. They wanted to be like him. So I mean, he had a huge impact. He had a huge influence. Now you can debate some of it's negative or positive. There's so many people out there who've impacted people. We talked about Michael Jordan. Jesse Jackson just passed away. Got it. His whole hope and the thing about stuff, all that hope behind it, and his campaign, man, first black man to run for president twice. He made him. Yeah, he made he made somebody like Obama think it's possible. Now it's time. So I mean, so come bring it back to everyday people. I think enough of us don't ask ourselves that question. Because we look at influence. Influence means we shape someone else's opinion or someone's thinking.
Yeah.
That's basically influence. Marketing understands influence. We don't. If you look at TV, they put stuff on. Like for instance, it's funny because if I'm ever home during the day, I'm looking at TV. You don't see a lot of beer commercials on the day because most guys at work. But at night, the evenings, in the football games, you got them on there. If you notice on the day, you see more household items like dishwashers and dishwashing soap and
more infomercials
and spas and things like that because they're trying to influence you. Why? Because most people when they're engaged in another activity, they're not thinking, but you're still taking the sound. You're still taking the sound. So while you bopping and cleaning or doing whatever you do, you still listen to this. It's like. Perfect example. I'm gonna get up in the morning. I'm playing music. I'm playing inspirational music, gospel music, and I'm gonna get cleaned up behind myself, cooking or whatever. It's every day I'll end up singing a song that I heard because you don't pay attention. But because what happens is you become almost. I don't use the word numb because you're still taking in stuff, but your guard is down. You're not really filtering what you're doing, what you're listening to, because you focus on your task, but there's other stuff that's infiltrating. So and you see that more and more every day. Well, people are just being taken advantage of, man, because folk understand it.
So, let me ask you, what are some positive versus negative aspects or examples of influence?
Oh man, positive. I'll start personally. When somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, there was something you said to me, whatever, 10 years ago, and I'm here because you said that." That makes me feel really good. That makes me feel really good when somebody says, "Yo, I'm here because of something you said." That to me is, that's kind of powerful, man. That's positive. When somebody says to me, "Hey, you did this because you did this. I'm doing this." That's positive influence. So I working with a group of kids and I ask them, I said, "Yo, who do you have to talk to?" And they go around in a circle, and the little boy looks at me and says, "You." And I noticed with him, I can see it change in his behavior. We talk more, and when he smiles more, we have a better interaction, man. So that is good.
Yeah, that would make
it is. Yeah, but you have a negative impact on people when you smoke and they smoke because you've been smoking around them all this time, man. It becomes a habit. You have a negative impact on people.
They're cursing all the time.
Yeah, because when you're when
they're always negative.
Because somebody asked me, they said, "Hey, so and so changed. You ever notice his vocabulary change?" Yeah, because he's hanging around somebody who's not, or the somebodies he's hanging around don't have an extensive vocabulary. So you start to talk like them because black folk, we say you acting white. Yeah, we do. You start trying you proper, or you start saying stuff they don't know. So and that's a negative influence. Some of the stuff on TV is a negative influence. I'll sit down with a group of teens and I say, "Okay, they like the song," and then I say, "Well, let's listen to the lyrics," and then they realize what they put in their head. Now they still listen to it.
Most people will listen to the beat.
But then when you tell them to really sit down and break it down, when I started doing the hype, and I need to bring it back. I had a workshop called, it must be in music or a message in the music.
Mr. Ryan did that, right?
Yeah, and I was kind of doing it first. Don't matter, but because mine was a little different. My thing was I want you to listen to this. We would have all the different kinds, and I'm not gonna name the songs here to show my age. He was a little more extensive because he knew all the rappers and all this. I didn't. I had to pick stuff I knew and analyze, but he could also go into the history of the rapper.
Yeah.
And that kind of makes it a little more oomph in it. But most people, like you said, they listen to the beat. You're a girl, you walk around calling yourself, I'm a B. Or do you realize what you're singing? And you're singing that around a bunch of guys, then you upset when they say that.
They changed it to I'm that.
Yeah. Well, perfect example. Last week we had a conversation on my groups. We talked about using the N-word. And did you think it was appropriate and why are you using it? First thing I learned was 95% of them had no idea what the original meaning was. None whatsoever.
They didn't know it was a slur?
Yep. Well, they knew it was a slur, but they didn't know what it meant. They didn't know as far as ignorance, it was used to mean you less than, inferior, all that stuff, man. And then all of them pretty much said the same thing. Because, that's what they hear.
Yeah.
So to them, because one person, Kanye West, came out and said, put it in the music and everything, that we're gonna turn this into a good word. Everybody did, and they think it's okay. So I said, well, what do you think a Caucasian person hears when you say that? They don't hear the GA. They say they hear the ER.
Yeah, they won't be rapping the song.
Yep.
And you next to
yeah,
him.
man.
Actually, it was a. I don't know if you remember, we were watching an episode of Bel Air, the first episode.
Yeah.
Carlton, he was in the locker room. In same situation. There was a white guy saying that Will was upset, but Carlton was fine with it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
But that's a negative influence.
Yeah.
When you walk around with your pants hanging down, and you can't have a conversation like, hey, that's a negative influence. And whenever you listen to something and it's turning you the wrong direction, that's a negative influence. You see a guy spend $85,000 for a car and mess it up by putting the wrong tires in the wrong. You turn a luxury car into a drag race car. So, come on, man. Yeah, and the guy who you got it from could afford to do that. He could afford to lose thousands of dollars on the trade-in because the car is not valued the way it should be valued. The average person can't. So I think you got to be careful, man, because there's a lot of negative influences out there. Our fearless leader of this country right now has a negative influence on a lot of people, man. Some of the same people who voted for him, he's screwing them. He told them what he was going to do, but it sounded good to them. Because one thing people learn to do is tickle your ears. What we've become very good at in society is saying things in a certain way that people make it sound good to people. Like, good influence. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Yeah, good influence. So we treat about respect. Bad influence. Okay, well, I'm only going to arrest the criminals. And people are for that. And I asked somebody this question today. A hard-nosed criminal is not going to be in Home Depot looking for a job. He ain't going to be working in Target. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, the places where you get
working at the dealership,
elementary school.
He in the factory.
Yeah.
He not going.
So, and I'm like, if you really want to, why you not down in the hood where they selling drugs at? The criminals are at. Why you not going down there? But I said because somebody got influenced and they voted for it, thinking, okay, well, he said some good stuff, so I'm gonna take the good stuff, and I'm not really gonna pay attention to the other stuff he said. Not understand you can get the whole can. You get the whole can of worms, and so that's a bad influence. And just like this, you can't take some things back. Yeah,
it's gonna be a digital footprint now. Like it's not like 50, 60 years ago where it could be word of mouth. Everything is online now. I feel like that's a great segue to this. This time period has definitely showed, danger of being easily influenced.
Oh yeah.
Like it showed that a lot of people, even as time goes on, you'll see, more how he'll act as a president, and you're coming up with different excuses.
But I mean, it's not even. Let's get away from politics for a second. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about life in general. I remember when the news was actually the news. When you would turn on the news and they told you what was going on. And I remember the news would start with something positive every day. Mary Jo planted some flowers and so on, and they're just starting to bloom. Hey, Devin took some stuff to his neighbor down the street. Hey, this school had a reading law. Man, they go right to the dirty stuff now. Matter of fact, it's the highlight. Breaking news. Man kills 15. Yeah,
3 a.m. there was a.
They go right into it. And then how many times have you can see something come across your screen that is the truth and it's not true. Mm-hmm. And it's even crept into sports. Because why? Because they understand people like things to be sensationalized. Why? Because people are influenced by things that go pow, wow, the glitter, the gold. They're influenced by that. So I'm going to give them what they want. I suck them in and then I give them the rest of the stuff. It's like when you go into the supermarket, they know, I don't know if you know, but brands, products, people who have brands and products, they pay more money to have their stuff in the front of the store. Yeah. Because they try to get everybody's attention soon they come in. Because they know if you got Little Johnny comes in there, man, and he likes cookies, those cookies are right there. He's more likely to ask for them there, because if you go down the cookie aisle, it's too many for him to choose from, so he's a little confused. Mm-hmm. But that one brand right there, he tunes into it. So for the rest of the trip in the store, I want Oreos. We know y'all do that. But yeah, so I mean, everybody understands influence except the people who are being influenced. Yeah. That's what it seems like. The people being influenced don't understand, but marketing, they clearly understand. You know, like you're never going to see a not so attractive woman selling a car. You just not. They always pick what they think is the most beautiful. That's what they do. And I'm not saying it's right, but I'm saying that's what they do. Why? Because men look at that and they see the lady. I'm gonna get a car like that because I can get a lady like that. One of my favorite commercials was Billy D. Williams in the Coke 45 commercial. It used to crack me up. It was my favorite commercial because they influenced a whole bunch of people to think, that I know Billy Williams was drinking on Coke 45, but they influenced a whole bunch of people that this Coke 45 was this majestic drink. Now all of a sudden it was. Hey, Billy D. Williams at that time, he was a pretty boy of African American. He drinks it. So, and then and then you got the beautiful women around, and I'm gonna get in trouble for this one, but the way those women look at it, you ain't gonna find a lot of women in the bar. Them women, they had the perfect makeup, or or
they would want to talk to you while you're drinking a 40.
Yeah, but he made it cool. So why? Because they knew how can I influence people by getting somebody they can relate, or they think they can relate to. And it works, which is why they get stars to push products, man. They don't get the no-name guy to push. Everybody's trying to find a star because they know people are influenced. If somebody gets on there and says, hey, if Jalen Hurts gets on there and says, I love Reese's peanut butter cups. Some people won't go get it just because he endorsed it.
Even on like a lighter note, yesterday, I don't know if you saw, Bam Adebayo scored 83 points.
In what league?
The NBA, yes. Yesterday, he scored 83 points against the Wizards. So,
hold on. How many dunks did he have?
He shot 17 threes. He shot a lot of free throws too. I think 43.
17 threes.
43 free throws.
No, but 17 threes by one person and by a center.
Yes.
And by a center is not known for shooting.
But it's just funny that
did they win?
Yeah. He got a lot, he started to get a lot of praise, people were congratulating him.
Yeah.
But then, you have it started with one person, he passed up Kobe. And now it seems like the floodgate just open. Now all these people critiquing the game, all this other stuff.
Because he passed Kobe?
And it's like the influence of that is just like, now you got all these negative feelings. So where it's like, you could just congratulate the guy for having a good game, That's the best game in his life.
I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah.
83 points at any level, at any game, is remarkable. It's remarkable. And I guarantee most of them people probably don't play basketball because they know they'll put up 83 points in any game. Mm-hmm. First of all, the amount of time that you have to put up 83 points in a regulation game is challenging. It's challenging, man. And then the other thing, when you start getting hot, they know you're getting hot. Mm-hmm. So that means, which is why he shot a lot of free throws.
Yeah.
So it's not, to put up 40 points in the game is hard, but to put up 83 points,
it's just funny how you see one negative thing about the game and you see all the floodgates open, people just going.
But you see it all over the place. It's the same thing. I was watching a sports show and Jalen Hurts after the Green Bay game, and I think he had a pass like a 100-something passer rating, man. He threw for like 4 touchdowns, whatever. And it was a sports guy you see at the airport, and people were asking him when they gonna trade him. When they gonna trade him? So he asked them like why, and they really couldn't say why. Because he can't throw the football. He just threw 4 touchdowns. What are you talking about? He can't throw the football. And the guy's like, wait a minute, are you looking at it? You see how he throws a deep ball? Like how do you have 1,000-yard receivers if somebody's not throwing him the football?
He wouldn't be starting if he couldn't throw the football.
But you got the last couple of years, both Devontae Smith and AJ Brown got 1,000 yards. Somebody got to be throwing the ball. Now see Dan Marino, no. But people repeat what they hear.
But he ain't Dan Orlovsky.
But I'll tell you that. That ball, man. But he's a perfect example. Some of the stuff he says makes no sense.
Yeah.
Okay, they know they influence people. For instance, you watched the Super Bowl, last year's Super Bowl, not the one this past. He was the MVP because they couldn't run the football. He threw the football. That's how they won. How do you come out of a game and say he can't throw the ball? Or let's go back to the Super Bowl they lost. He outplayed Mahomes in 2 games. So how can you say he can't do? Why? Because somebody says it and people take it and run with it. Yeah. And they just repeat the same stuff over and over and over again. And it's not just sports. It's all every facet of life, man. People take stuff and they just run with it. And half the time, somebody says it because they want to get a splash. I mean, just like when they talking about Jalen Hurts wasn't talking to anybody down there, at the Pro Bowl. And everybody from different teams, on his team can say that wasn't true. But so what you do, you take a picture when he by himself, which he could have came from the bathroom, or now at A&R Photoshop, you can just sit here about it anyway.
Because there was a photo of him earlier, literally.
I can do it on my phone. Just have Jalen Hurts. So and that became a story. Or they question his leadership, and then people leaving here talk about how he's one of the best teams they ever played for. Well, somebody in the locker room said. And so
that's their favorite thing. Someone said it, right?
But they know because some people look at these sports writers and these sports announcers and think they like the Bible. Yeah, if they said it got to be correct
because they're in the locker room.
It got to be just like baseball. People are Barry Bonds, but nobody talking about Roger Clemens. Who got caught. Nobody talk about this dude like Kurt Schilling.
They can think of.
What you keep. I mean, or if you want to go back in history, man, you had guys that got in there who were known racists. Who you got in the Hall of Fame. So it's just because it's about influence. Or I'm not a Patriot fan. I'm not. But how do you not put in Belichick and Kraft in the Hall of Fame? How can you say Brady is the GOAT, the best of all time? But his coach and the owner who drafted him, put the team around him, who are not. I mean, but wow, because influence. Because you got some people. Spygate. So if he did it was one game. Show me one NFL coach, man, who has not stolen a sign or And I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right. But you tampered his legacy. This was his legacy you messing with.
Yeah.
And by you messing with his legacy, now people are doubting the whole football process now. And see, they didn't think about that.
Crazy, they didn't think about that when T.O. didn't get in the first drive, but
this
is causing an uproar.
Because, and again,
which is rightfully so, but still, it's like.
Well, see, I disagree. I don't think he should have been. I'm not a Patriot fan by any means. It really was never proven that that's what happened. And it happens. It's wrong. But in all sports, people figure out how to get an advantage. You can say baseball, they try to steal signs, man. All sports, they try to get an advantage, man. You look over another team's huddle in basketball, man, see what you can see, man. And all sports teams, but people influence other people, and so his legacy got tarnished because somebody had a personal axe to grind. But you can't. So even if you spygate that one game, they won what, 6 Super Bowls? So even if you take one off the table,
it's like okay,
they still win 5.
Now how hard it is to get one.
But you not hold that against Tom Brady.
Oh, we'll see.
No,
we'll see. I still think they're going to do that.
I don't think so.
I think they're going to do that.
He's the golden boy. But influence and impact. I think their words they go hand in hand. I think too many times we don't think about it, man. We don't think about how sometimes influence is just being yourself. It's just that's important. It's not always trying to, be out there screaming and hollering and shouting. My dad always said this too. The real leader in the room is not the loudest. It's not. The real leader in the room is the one who everybody looks to when things start going wrong. And sometimes it's the quietest person in the room. So I think, and we have yet to understand that. But mentoring is a positive example. Encouraging somebody to pursue their purpose. Holding somebody accountable. I think
heavy on the holding somebody accountable.
Yeah, we can do a whole show on that. We can do a whole show on that.
But if we're gonna get into it, so let's say this: who was your first outside of grandpa? Who was your first real influence or mentor? Outside of grandma and grandpa.
I mean, I think it was a lot. I think when I was younger, I had coaches and teachers. I went to a small elementary school, Sophie School Yard, it's Podcast Yard, where it kind of spoiled me because, everybody knew your name. Every teacher knew your name. Every teacher knew your mom and dad. They knew my grandmom. They had home and school, home and school association where parents were involved in the school. It was different. And when you went to the next class, they knew you. They knew your family. It was just different. So I had teachers like Mr. Crummell was really, really strong African American teacher who was in the school. Mr. Tillman, You know, same thing. And then I had I never forget Mrs. Keck, you know, who was my I had a crush on her, by the way. She was my third grade teacher, man. You know, her and her daughter. She used to bring her daughter to work sometimes, man. But yeah, you know, Miss Fiske was not only, but she was older white lady. You know, really cared though. I mean, really cared, man. You know, Mr. Michelson. You know, it was a funny dude. You know, when I had elementary school, man. You know, he was kind of had some abstract things he would do. Like he would make you stand in the back and if you got caught talking, hold two books. You know,
I thought that only happened in TV shows. I didn't think that was real.
nah, and he would throw stuff at you.
It's
And
like
you
Matilda.
and you couldn't drop the book. He would throw stuff at you. You couldn't drop the book because you had to stand back there longer. I can see that now.
They call that abuse.
Yeah. Now you'd be fired.
Yeah, yes.
But there was a lot of people, man. When I got to junior high school, Gabe Hardiman was a guy who Gabriel Hardiman Choir was very well renowned. He was a gym teacher, but he was a baseball coach. You know, we were 27-1, and it was funny because you know somebody talked me and went out for the team, and I played almost every position. I did everything but pitch and catch. I did. I played every position, man. But he also taught me something. He gave me a little more confidence in playing the game.
Yeah.
You know, because you know he was like, "Yo, you know." Because you when you grow up, you play a position. But he was like, "Nah, you can do this," and I just did. You know, I did. As a matter of fact, that was my first MVP trophy. I got the most valuable player trophy. So there was a bunch of people, man. You know, when I got to high school, it was a little different.
Yeah.
You know, high school is a different place because it's bigger. You know, but by the time I got to high school, you know, I guess my brothers kind of filled in that role. Just watching my brothers, because they had this quiet strength, both of them. So just learning some things from them was pretty amazing. My dad was there the whole across the time. And then when I near the end of high school, I had he passed away, Charles Mays, which is Tommy's brother. He coached as man. He was had a huge impact on me. And then we had let me see, Mr. Boone, who didn't have sons, but he sponsored the baseball team and the basketball team and carted us around and did the things he needed to do. Ralph from the Cobra Direct was another coach, but he same thing, man. Never played for him. He always got me for not playing for him, but he was at my games all the time. Like, you know, even when I went up to see him play, he would support me. He just was there.
Yeah.
You know, and don't know why, because I never played. He used to tease me all the time because when you gonna come play for me? I never did. So I was fortunate to have a lot of black men.
Yeah.
You know, growing up who kind of gave me positive influence because the common thread about all of them, they didn't tolerate shenanigans. You know, like now, you can be cursing people out and still be on the team. It didn't matter. If you did something bad, you sat down. Yeah. You know, or you got kicked off the team. You know, talking back.
Bad grades, he wasn't playing.
You couldn't do stuff in school and go out there and think you're going to run around the field and play. You know, you couldn't be disrespectful. You know, we had a shirt something has. You know, so I learned a lot from those guys. You know, when I got to college, really nobody that had a life-lasting impact on me. The culture,
up there?
in the culture I did, but it was some, but it was, you know, it was different though, because, you know, I mean, college is a great place, it is, but very seldom, and some people do, you have life-changing relationships in college. Some people do. I just never did.
Yeah, actually.
You know, some people do. I never did. You know, now you go back to first grade and kindergarten, I'm still friends with those guys. You know, that was life-changing relationships for me. You know, those are guys who I admire because they're good dads, they're good husbands, you know, they're successful in their own right. You know, they're impacting people, they're influencing people. You know, so yeah, there's been quite a few people, man. I've never been one to be in awe of famous people because I always felt like, you know, I can't talk to a famous person. If I was having problems with my homework, if I was being depressed or something, you know, I got a post on the wall. That's about as close as I got to him. So that has never been me.
Yeah.
That has never been me. But I know Charles Mays, had me coach when I was 18 years old. Just came home from college my first year because I was 17 when I graduated high school. And he was like, "Yeah, I need you to coach this team." I'm not a coach. I just play. No, I need you to coach the team. You know, remember how we get you, and I did. And he taught me about giving back, and I've been giving back ever since. You know, he taught me the importance of, you know, paying it forward. You know,
something he influenced your career.
Yeah, and not
I even know.
Yeah, sure did. Never thought about it, and not just paying it forward, just to pay it forward, and not to pay it forward just to get something out of it, but to pay it forward because one, it was the right thing to do. You know, two, because he taught me this, and I still say this today. He says, you know, if you take what you have and give it to somebody, and they take what you have and what they have, which I've done with you, and you guys accomplished, they become better people. And I never forgot that. You know, because my gifts plus your gifts are gonna make you better. So I think so. Yeah, he was a huge influence on me, man. Just you know, and you know, he was like a brother. We weren't brothers by blood, but like his mom, God rest his soul, his mom turned 90. You know, and they wanted me to be a birthday party. So Deb and I, your mom and I went to the birthday party. She turned 90, and every time they see me, he's like, "Hey, my brother." You know, Tommy and Mike. You know, his sisters Pam, Anthony, his brother Anthony, and his sister Pam and Linda. You know, and Paula. So yeah, you know, so I mean, yeah. Now, I think now I would have to say your mom, definitely. Yeah, you know, I literally say this. You know, and I said this to her. I just finally said this to her. She, you know, she kind of saved my life in the sense that she helped me change the way I was living. And she don't. Sometimes she try to play it off, but your mom's very smart. She is. She's very smart, and very wise in her own way. So I did, and I always. She's strong. You know, she's emotionally. You know, she just psychologically she is. You know, and she's not easily fazed by what's going around her. You know what I mean? Sometimes that comes off wrong to people. You guys, when I look at you, I look at Nicole, I look at Chris. You know, I'm influenced because I look at how you handle things differently than I did. I look at how you guys were able to take some of what I have, some of what your mom have, and add your flavor to it, and add a little bit what my dad did and what her mom and dad, and you see it. And it's pretty cool when you see that stuff start to flourish in your kids, and but they're their own people, and at this stage of the game, though, my man Mackenzie always reminds me, man, that and he does. He always reminds me, man, that sometimes life is more simple than we're allowed to be. He reminds me, man. He does. But you know what, Devin? Some of the stuff we worry about, we shouldn't be worried about. Yeah, some of the stuff we worry about, man. He reminds me what it's like to have childlike faith, man. To just have that faith, man, that you just believe in something, and believe with all your heart, And he reminds me, like, yo, how sometimes I just gotta take a step back.
Childlike joy.
Yeah, perfect analogy. He does. So so for that, it's like, yo, man, like he was over here yesterday. We were hanging out yesterday. He spent the night taking school this morning, and he's laughing and joking, man, being silly, man. Grandpa. Yeah. So he kind of and so when I went, I don't think about anything else. We just laughing, we joking, we having fun. And it kind of takes me back. Like I went to see him. I keep saying he's gonna play basketball. I went to see him run around. He's gonna get better at it. He looks over and gives me the thumbs up. So yeah, he just he says, remember, you pick me up tomorrow. I got to pick him up from school tomorrow. So he's on that list too, man. He's on that list too, man. Most definitely.
That's awesome. And then, before we go, I do like this one quote that you did have here. Your life may be the only blueprint someone else has.
Yeah, man.
I like that. That's very...
From my man, that ain't me. I got Martin Luther King Jr. Woo! He does a speech actually in Philadelphia. People don't realize he's done right here in Philadelphia at elementary school.
Is the school done around?
Life's Blueprint. Yeah, I think it is too. Yeah, Life's Blueprint, man. And so I kind of stole that from him, man. But we want to say thank you.
Borrowed. We pay homage.
Yep.
Thank you for joining us, y'all. Above Average Black Men. We're here to empower, inspire, uplift the community. And always remember to like, follow, subscribe, share, comment, interact with us. And shout out to Chris. We hope you feel better.
That's right. Hope you're watching this, man. If not, I tell you can catch us on. I gotta pull it back up again, man. I'm pretty proud of this.
Live 365.
Yeah, live365.com. Internet radio. Above Average Black Men. A square BM. Live365.com. Special Sounds Entertainment is the station. Special Sounds Entertainment. My man Kev Lofton, who runs the station, man. He does an excellent job on it. You can catch us there. This show is going to air tomorrow.
You missed it today?
Yep. This show is going to air tomorrow, 6:30 in the morning to 7:30. It's going to come on tomorrow evening again at 7:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. and it will run Friday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then after we film next week's show, that show takes over. So you can catch us on there, man. Again, that's live365.com. Special Sounds Entertainment. So that's A squared. If you don't know what squared is, that's AABM on live365.com. Special Sounds Entertainment. My man Kevin Lofton runs the station, man. Yo, hey, if you want to advertise, hit me up. I can connect you to them. If you got a show on you, hit me up. I can connect you to them, man. But check them out, man. Give them a play, man. We love you guys, man, and we will see you guys next week.